It's good to have a buddy system of some kind so that you can't talk yourself out of it. Have a buddy that you can be held accountable to. Because I travel so much, I have to use music as my buddy. And so I put on different kinds of music. I love listening to Christmas music all year. They called me Father Christmas in college. And I said, it's not Christmas music in July, it's first Advent music. It doesn't become Christmas music till November. So June, July, April, that's first Advent music. So, but I love the music and I sing it all the time. So people ask me, you have a prayer request? I'll say, yeah, Hark the Herald. They say, that's Christmas. No, it's first Advent. And you said, you asked for a song, you didn't put restrictions on it. So I like Christmas music. So listen to music while you're exercising. It helps take your mind off of the workout and lifts it up to music. I exercise to classical music and positive music. People say, how can you exercise to classical music? You try working out to Flight of the Bumblebee and see how long you last. Some of that classical music is very fast, but it's wonderful. It's uplifting. It's inspiring. So what are the benefits for exercising? Let's take a look. Maybe we'll want some of these ourselves. When you exercise, you're going to get more oxygen in your body. Cancer cells cannot grow in an oxygen-rich environment. When they want to grow cancer cells in the laboratory, they put it in a vacuum and they explode. And as soon as they start pumping in oxygen, it stops. So they've discovered cancer doesn't like oxygen. One thing it does like a lot, and this is why we have so much problem in the U.S., sugar. They love sugar. You can't even eat fruit when you're on cancer treatment because they tell you the fruit sugar will make it worse. So more oxygen in the body, it'll help your digestion. After you've eaten, it's good to take a walk, at least a half-hour walk after you've eaten. It helps the food to digest. It's going to improve your circulation. It's going to relax your nerves and your emotions. Have you ever seen it when somebody gets tense and they tell them, you need to go take a walk it off? Yeah, they might tell you that too. It'll increase your resistance to disease. It'll help your figure and your complexion. And we're only halfway through. Here are 6 more reasons why. Reduce fatigue. We suffer from 2 kinds of fatigue, hypertonic and hypertonic. Will eliminate both of those. It'll strengthen. When you put weight on these bones and muscles, the body is strong because you're going to need it. But if you sit at home, sit in your car to go to work, and sit at work, the body says, you don't really need these. You're not using them. So your bones become hollow like a straw. It's called. And there's a reason why it happens. The thing you didn't do. You didn't put weight on these bones. And so they atrophy. They don't stay strong. Your heart against disease. You know, it says in Psalms, I shall run the way of thy commandments, and thou shalt enlarge my heart. We know that runners have a larger heart than the average population because a heart is a muscle. And what always happens when you work a muscle, it gets larger. So the Bible was there about running the way of the commandments and enlarging your heart. Interesting. It'll sharpen your mental powers. The brain uses 4 times more oxygen than the rest of the body. This is the big oxygen user here. And if you've got plenty of oxygen coming, it's going to sharpen your mental acuity. It'll enhance your poise and your agility, and it'll protect against sudden stress. So here we have a dozen excellent reasons why you should exercise, and not one good reason why you shouldn't, unless you have a physical limitation. But if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So we need to get the exercise in. Now, this ties into the next thing I want to talk to about, and that's a multi-billion-dollar industry here in America called weight loss. People are looking for the magic pill, the magic drink, the magic surgery, anything but obey. And when you get gastric bypass, you're telling me, I just don't want to obey. So I'd rather turn to the doctor and let him do whatever he needs to do so I don't have to obey. Now, if you've had gastric or you know somebody who has, I'm not trying to put you down, but I'm telling you that's a very dangerous operation and that you're going to have to live with the rest of your life. So you need to make the decision. People say, I have a glandular problem, I'm too heavy. Usually that gland is the saliva gland, and that's why you're too heavy. I've watched documentaries on POWs, prisoners of war. Nobody comes out of those camps heavy. You can count their ribs. So that tells me something. No heavy one came out of the camp and said, oh, had a glandular problem, I still weigh 250 pounds. No, you're not. So we can't look around for a blame or a shortcut. If you obey God, you will not be fluffy. It's just the truth. You will not be. He didn't give you the food and the program to make you overweight and sick. He gave you the food and the program that works. So, weight loss. Here's the 3 things you need to do to lose weight. You will lose on this program 1 to 2 pounds a week. You say, well, that's not enough. That's 50 to 100 pounds a year, right? 52 weeks in a year, you're losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. Do the math. Do you think someone would notice if you lost 50 to 100 pounds? Of course they would. So get started. You took time to put the weight on. You need to follow nature in taking it off. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of flabby skin and a lot of other problems when you try to do all this crash stuff. My mother, the nurse, always saw all these new diets coming out at the clinic. So my brother and I would come home and the refrigerator would be full of grapefruit. Oh, mom's on a grapefruit diet. Next month, it's full of cabbage. Oh, she's on the cabbage soup diet. And on they go. Mom, just follow what God says. You don't have to have a special trigger or gimmick to do it. Follow what he says. So here are the 3 simple rules to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. Rule number 1, eat natural food, just as it's grown. God put something in all of his food to keep you from eating too much. It fills you up and makes fiber. That's right. The nozzle at the gas station. When that tank is full, it snaps, doesn't it? It says no more. Well, you have a gland here in the middle of your brain called the apostat or appetite gland. And when this tank here is full, it snaps the trigger in your brain, said, no more, I don't want any more. Now this gullet area is about the size of 2 fists. And when that's full, you're done. You're done. And God's food, because it all has fiber, this is going to fill up fast. Now, is there any fiber in Coca-Cola? No. Is there much fiber in candy bars? No. But there's a lot of sugar. So your fat cells are getting filled, but you're not taking care of the ones you want to get rid of. So eat natural food. When we keep eating out of jars, boxes, and cans, we start looking like jars, boxes, and cans. All right? You want to eat the food as it grows, from dirt to dish. Stop playing with your food. When I sit down and eat it, I want Adam and Eve to recognize it. But we're putting stuff on our plate, they wouldn't know what it was. They don't recognize it. It's man-made. Now, have you noticed that every year there are new products on the grocery shelf? Did we find a new plant or a new tree, and that's why there's new products? No. They've been doing experiments in the grocery store. They've been doing experiments in the laboratory. And they putting chemicals in there to enhance the taste so that you can't leave it alone. And that's why when people wake up in the morning, they say, don't talk to me until I've eaten this or drunk this. Why? Because they're dependent on it. They're hooked on it. You don't get hooked on God's food. I don't wake up and say, gotta have my broccoli. Don't talk to me till I've had asparagus. You know, God's food isn't that way. But man-made food, oh, gotta have my chips, gotta have my latte, gotta have this, you know. It's because that food has messed with your brain and you've got yourself addicted to it. Very sad story. Yes. On the videos that I'm gonna have available tonight, we have films of these food flavoring companies and what they're doing to your food. You would be shocked. 60 Minutes did this. You can watch it on YouTube if you want. Type in 60 Minutes food flavoring. And they went to the largest food flavoring company in the world, Juvenal. It's in Switzerland. And these guys do everything they can, and they say it on the video, to be addicted to the drink or to the food that they're enhancing. They want you addicted. And they even said addiction is a good word. Addiction is never, never a good word, because that means something has control of you. You are addicted to it. You can't leave it alone. I don't care if it's pornography. I don't care if it's food. I don't care if it's whatever. If you can't leave it alone, you're addicted and you need to deal with it before it gets worse. So, natural food, lots of fiber, just eat in the Garden of Eden as much as possible. That's what you were designed to consume. Second rule for losing weight is big meal in the morning like a king, lighten up at lunch like a prince, and if you eat a third meal, which you do not need, bad training in this country, but if your third meal should be just cereal and fruit, something very light, because you're going to bed in 4 or 5 hours. You don't need all and going to bed, because if you go to bed with all those calories, they're going to be stored in your fat cells. That's why you try to eat your calories in the morning, because you've got all day to burn it. Food, it only does one of two things with the food. It burns it or stores it. That's all it can do. One of those two. You decide what it's going to do. Are you going to eat too many? Then it's got to store it. You're going to eat too late? It's got to store it. You should be eating less food and don't be eating at night. So, good rule of thumb. My eating time, because of my schedule, I eat at 9 o'clock in the morning after I'm done with my worship. Second and final meal at 4 o'clock, so that I've got 5 hours before I go to bed. Easy to follow if you're not on a schedule, okay? But you can work it. God will help you to adjust no matter what you're doing. You don't have to have 9 and 4, but pick something. But I'm telling you, you don't need 3 meals. All you're doing is overworking the body and making a lot of poo-poo. You don't need 3 meals. So when you go down to 2 meals, that means you've cut your grocery bill by 30%, haven't you? That's right. People say, it costs too much to be vegetarian. I said, I can cut your bill by 30%. You can? I said, that's right. Eat 2 meals. If you eat good, healthy food for 2 meals, you don't need any more. You will get all your need in 2 meals. That's it. You don't need any more. Otherwise, you're just overloading. And that's no good. So, and then the final thing for weight loss is you've got to exercise. Muscle is the flame that burns fat. This is why men generally can lose weight faster than women, because we have more muscle mass in our structure. And so when those muscles start to work, the muscle said, I need some fuel to work. And the body says, I'll get to that big old fat cell and we'll throw it at you. And it'll burn up the fat cell. So muscles, move it. You will lose it. You do these 3 things and you don't have Oreos under your bed, cheating. If you do these 3 things, I guarantee 1 to 2 pounds a week. Now you may plateau after a couple of months, and that's okay. Don't panic. Your body is leveling out and trying to get everything adjusted to what's going on now, and it'll start losing it again. The scale doesn't really tell you the whole truth. Because what happens is when you start exercising and eating the right food, muscle weighs more than fat. So as you're building more muscle, the scale is saying, you gained 3 pounds. How did I gain 3 pounds? Well, you might have lost 4 pounds of fat, and then you gained 3 pounds of muscle. So it's misleading. The biggest giveaway of all, if you're losing weight, is how do your clothes feel? Right. If they start feeling loose, you know your body is firming up. It may weigh a little more, but it's going to look good. People say, oh, you got a waist. Yes, because the muscle is going to replace the fat, and you're going to be looking good. Okay? Those are the simple rules. If you follow those, yep, you'll lose it, guaranteed. All right. Now I'm going to go into a very sensitive area, the most sensitive area of the seminar, and that is nutrition. I don't know what's in your refrigerator. So don't be embarrassed or feel like I'm picking on you, because I don't know. You don't say anything, I'll never know. Actually, I'm not interested in what's in your refrigerator right now. I'm more interested in what's going to be in there next month, and the month after that, and the month after that. That's what I'm interested in. Yes. So, when I was a new Christian, I was reading these statements on health from Ellen White, and that set the course of my health principles. I was not listening to the fat doctors, and there are plenty of them. I have a hard time listening to a 300-pound doctor or pastor because you're telling me something. You're telling me you're out of control. Why should I listen to you? I don't want somebody out of control teaching me, who's disciplined, in control, and God is using. So these statements that I found really helped me. The most important thing, of course, is my daily devotional life. That's where I get the motivation and the power to do what I do. Without God, I wouldn't want to do it. I want to be a Cheeto and Coca-Cola person in front of the TV with 400 channels like everybody else. Eventually, they're bigger than their flat screen TV. That's saying a lot when you see some of those. All right. So I don't say these to make fun of you, but lighten up the topic a little bit, because it is tense. You're getting really personal when you're talking about people, what they're eating, because that's very personal. Eating is a very sensory thing. Do you know you use all 5 of your senses when you eat? You use all 5 of your senses. And the devil knew that. And that's what he did with Eve in the Garden of Eden. He tempted her using all 5 of her senses at that fruit tree. And he got her. He got her. And we're told these are the 5 avenues to our soul, is our 5 senses. So we've got to guard those avenues to the soul. What we're listening to, what we're touching, what we're smelling and tasting and looking at. The avenues to our soul. So let me read to you these statements, and you can tell me what you think of it. Through inducing men to yield to his temptations, Satan can get control of them. How does he get control? He gets you to yield to one of his temptations. He's shooting at one of your 5 senses, and he knows which ones work and which ones don't. So let me read this again. Through inducing men to yield to his temptations, Satan can get control of them. And through no class of temptation does Satan achieve greater success than those addressed to the appetite. If this is his greatest success, it better be my greatest effort, because this is where he's most successful. If he can control the appetite, he can control the whole man. Satan says, if I got your mouth, you're mine. I got you. I've got you. I'm going to affect everything about your mind and your body and your soul by what goes in here. because what you eat and drink today is going to walk and talk tomorrow. Next statement. Satan is constantly on the alert to bring the race fully under his control. We know that. His strongest hold on man is through the appetite. This he seeks to stimulate in every possible way. That's why he has to have new food on the shelf. It needs to get more stimulation and more stimulation. God's food is not stimulating food. It doesn't rev up your nervous system. It satisfies you. But Satan's food that comes in jars, boxes, and cans pretty much is going to rev you up. And that's why she says he seeks to stimulate us every possible way. God doesn't try to stimulate you when you eat his food. His point is he wants to nourish you, not to overstimulate you. Next statement. In no other way has Satan come with his temptations to fallen humankind as successfully as through the appetite. This is his big punch. And then this last statement. This was the big one. When I read this one, I said, I got it. I got it. And here it is. And it's in Counsels on Diets and Food, page 59. If you want the other references, I can give them to you later. But this one was the big boy. The controlling power of appetite will prove the ruin of thousands who, if they had conquered on this point, which point? Appetite. We would have moral power to gain the victory over every other temptation. Did you catch that? Yes. If you can get the victory in appetite, you will have moral power for all the other temptations. Now, as a new Christian, I had a lot of changes I needed to make. I needed to start wearing different kinds of clothes. I needed to start watching different kinds of programs, listening to different kind of music. And I thought, where do I begin? There's so many to choose from. And then I read this. I said, I know where to begin. Because if I can get the victory over appetite, I will have moral power over all of the other temptations. You see, those temptations are like a line of dominoes. How do you knock down a whole line of dominoes? All you have to do is knock down the first one. And that first one, we're told, is appetite. You knock that one down, you will have moral power for all of the other temptations. She goes on to say, as we draw near the close of time, are we there? Yes. We're almost past it. As we draw near the close of time, Satan's temptation to indulge the appetite will be more powerful and more difficult to resist. Friends, it's going to get worse. Those burgers that you buy are going to be more stimulating. Those drinks that you drink are going to have a lot of drugs in there. We know they put them in. They told us at 60 Minutes when they exposed them. So we have to make the choice. Now, we're not making one rule for everybody. We're going to give you principles, and you fill it in. You have to eat your vegetables. I'm not going to tell you which ones you have to eat because we have preferences. You have to have your beans, but I'm not going to tell you which ones to eat. Find ones that you like. Granted, there are some that are more nutrient dense than others. The two most nutrient dense beans are garbanzo beans and soybeans. Those are packed. They're strong. But you can mix it around because different fruits and vegetables have different strong and weak points. That's why we eat a variety throughout the week, not in a day. We keep it simple, small variety, and the next day, eat a different variety. Don't eat oatmeal every day. You need wheat, you need amaranth, you need quinoa, you need a variety, not the same one every day. Because each one has their strong points and their weak points. So eat a variety. Harvard Medical School made it very simple. They said if you will eat all the different colors of the fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables, you will get all your nutrition. Food is color-coded. How simple could God have made it? Different colors have different nutrition. The darker the color, the general rule is the more nutrient dense it is, the stronger it is. That's why dark kale is so strong. Purple cabbage is much stronger than green cabbage. And so the darker the color, generally, the more nutrient is. The sweet potato is more nutrient than the white potato. Okay? So follow that as that doesn't mean go home and burn all your food. It's all black. It should be strong. No. We don't talk about burning the food. It's got to be the natural color that it belongs to. So eat all the different colors. And it's going to take time to make some of these adjustments. And if you fall back like I did with the potato chip, I told that story Friday night. If you fall back, don't beat yourself up. And if you see somebody else, don't beat them up, lift them up. We're here to lift each other up, not to criticize or have evil surmising. Oh, I think I know what they did. I know what I saw. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't go there. You're going to be judged more critically than what they did, because God hates a gossip and liars. Thou shalt not bear false witness. It's one of the 10. Yeah. Eating a potato chip is not one of the 10 commandments. All right. Now I'm going to have to move along here because we're already at 7:30, so we're not going to be able to cover all of this. But Proverbs talks a lot about our taste buds. The wisest man who ever lived. The Bible, the whole Bible talks about it, New Testament and Old Testament. But I just selected these 4 from Proverbs because it's right to the point. Proverbs 13:25, the righteous has enough to satisfy his soul, to satisfy our taste buds. When a woman gets a recipe, the other lady says, what does it taste like? That's not what I say. What's in it? What's in that recipe? I'll decide then if I'm going to eat it. All right? So, the righteous man satisfies his soul. That means we should be eating soul food, shouldn't we? Yeah, there are no brain cells in here. The brains are on top for a reason. They're to control everything else underneath. Anything under that brain gets control, it may destroy the system and you for eternity. Do not let the taste buds control when there's no brains in there. Proverbs 13:3, the one who guards his mouth preserves his life. Oh, good, I get to live longer. The next one, Proverbs 21:23, he who guards and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. Now we're not just talking about our life. We're talking about eternity now, aren't we? Yes, your soul. And then your tongue has 2 primary functions. Some other minor things, but the primary function and taste. And death and life will be in those. Say to people, are you bringing life or death to them? What you bring inside, are you bringing life or death to yourself? That's what the tongue can do. And the Bible says in another place, nobody controlled the tongue. So you need help. You have to ask God to help you. All right. Now, people think vegetarian, that's for hippies. That's for the earth muffins, the tree huggers. That's who are vegetarians. No. Vegetarianism isn't something new that just showed up. It's been around for a long time. In fact, about 6,000 years. Vegetarianism started in the Garden of Eden when we first showed up. That was the vegetarian diet. But there are many famous people throughout history that you're not aware of, and I wasn't either till I did the research, that are vegetarians. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah, I don't want to go over that. You'll recognize some of these vegetarians throughout history. Plato, Socrates, Da Vinci, Gandhi, Isaac Newton, Albert Schweitzer, Leo Tolstoy, Thomas Edison, Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, all vegetarians. Smart, brilliant leaders, and they're vegetarians. And that's why they're smart. That's why they're leaders, because they know how to feed the brain. You don't just feed the body when you eat, you feed the brain. You either make it dull and listless, or you make it charged and excited. All right. Journal of the American Medical Association said that a vegetarian diet can prevent how much? 97% of our coronary occlusions, heart attack. We can virtually eliminate the number one killer in America by a vegetarian diet. This report didn't come out last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. This report came out in June of 1961. A century, we knew how moneymaker in America, heart attack. But we haven't done it, have we? Why not? Well, for one, we eat according to our taste buds. And the other problem is advertising. And if you don't think advertising works, they would have quit spending those billions of dollars a long time ago. But they know it works. And so they're going to keep advertising you. They're going to get you to wear it, to eat it, to watch it, to drink it, to smoke it, because it works. Yes. So let's take a look at this machine and see how it works. When you buy a new car, you look at the owner's manual, don't you? You need to know what kind of oil to put in, how much air pressure in the tires. You read the manual so you will get maximum use and length out of that car. What about this machine? Your car is an internal combustion engine. You can't put Coca-Cola inside the gas tank. All right? Yeah, it's not going to work. So, what about this system? Let's take a look. Are we a vegetarian machine? First of all, let's begin with our jaw structure, your mandibles. I want to see if you can do what I do. Can you move your jaw from left to right, like this? Okay, good. How about up and down, like this? Okay, now here's the tricky one. Can you go forward and backward, like this? Yeah, well, don't you look silly? All right, you can move your jaw in 3 directions. Only vegetarian animals do this. The jaw of a meat-eating animal will only go up and down. You have never seen a dog eat like this. His jaw will only go up and down. But goats, horses, cows, your mama, the jaw is designed to break down bulky, fibrous plant food. This is the jaw structure of a plant-eating animal. No question. Anybody in physiology will tell you that. But let's keep going. Do we have any dentists here or hygienists? Not tonight? All right. Any dentist can look at your dental structure and say, this is the dental structure of a plant-eating animal. Your molars and your bicuspids are flat on top. They're not sharp and pointed like a meat-eating animal, and they're round on the side. You have 4 canine incisors for the apples and the carrots and some of the firmer plants, but the rest of your teeth are flat, aren't they? Are they sharp and pointed like a wolf or a bear? No, they're flat. If you use these flat teeth and you sneak up to a cow and dust off his hind quarter and you try to take a bite of flesh, all you're going to get is kicked, because these teeth will not puncture his hide. They're designed for grinding fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. They're not sharp and pointed. But let's continue. Your saliva. If you were to send a sample of your saliva to a laboratory, not telling them where it came from, they would look under a microscope and they said, whatever creature this was from, it is from a plant-eating animal. Because you and every plant-eating animal has a high concentration of special enzymes in your saliva to break down starches. It only occurs in vegetarian animals. So you're busted. Your saliva already gave you up. But we're not done. When you sweat off your skin. The meat-eating animal sweats off their tongue. What about your food gathering apparatus? You do not have claws. to slash the side of an animal and rip his flesh off. You have the most unique food gathering apparatus of anything on earth. You are the only one with an opposable thumb and soft padded fingers. When you grab the fruits and the vegetables and the berries, you don't destroy them and spoil them. You take them home and they're not bruised and you can enjoy it. But man likes to pretend he has claws. He sits at the table and he picks up a fork and then he grabs a knife and he goes, wow, I'm a meat-eating animal. Look at my claws. Who are you kidding? We're not done. Hydrochloric acid, HCl. The meat-eating animal's hydrochloric acid is 10 times stronger than yours. Your hydrochloric acid isn't strong enough to neutralize the toxins that are in meat, because biologically speaking, meat is 75% toxic to the human body. It's full of urine, waste products, hormones, cholesterol. None of this God planned for you to eat. This is not in God's menu at all. You won't find any of that in fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. Bananas don't go to the bathroom. Potatoes don't poop because there's no waste. It's all pure and healthy, ready for you to eat. But we like to go to the animals that have waste products. Our body is busy getting rid of our waste. It doesn't need to double the load by getting rid of somebody else's waste also. It's too much work. But we keep doing it. Now, how many of you have heard of John Harvey Kellogg of Battle Creek, Michigan? Kellogg cereal? Very famous sanitarium. People from all over the world would come there because their doctors sent them saying, I don't know what to do for you, but this Mr. Kellogg seems to be ahead of everybody. That's because he was listening to who I listened to, Ellen White, and it put him ahead. Dr. Kellogg, in his lectures that he would give to the patients, he didn't care if it was royalty from Europe who was sitting in the audience. He would bring out a bacteriologist, people who study bacteria, and he would have a plate that had steak on it and another plate that had manure. And this bacteriologist will tell the audience there is more bacteria in the steak than there is in the manure. So you would be safer to eat the cow pie rather than the cow itself. Wow. But they convinced us to eat it, didn't they? Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Now, the biggest giveaway of all, of course, is your digestive tract. It's very long and convoluted. The digestive tract of vegetarian animals is 10 times the length of the animal's torso. And guess what? Your digestive tract is about 30 to 40 feet long, 10 times the length of your torso. The digestive tract of a meat-eating animal is very short, only 3 times the length of the animal's torso, so that when the meat goes in, it can evacuate out quickly. When meat goes into this digestive tract, meat or cheese, it gets what we call compacted, and it has a hard time going through. Think of fiber as a sponge. That's in all the fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. The digestive tract. When you eat a fruit or vegetable meal, it's going to be done in about 12 to 15 hours. But if you eat meat or cheese, it can take 72 hours to get through, about 3 days. Guess what happens to that carcass in your body when it's trying to get out for 3 days? It's going to putrefy. It's going to poison your blood. It's going to make you slow, irritable, sluggish, and susceptible to diseases that animal brought into your body because it stayed there for 3 days and it putrefied. No question. We have fiber optic cameras that can follow everything that you eat. And they said, that stuff takes 3 days before it's all gone. 3 days. How many of you ladies would take out a chicken, leave it on the counter for 3 days, and then cook it and give it to your family? That's what's happening when they eat it. It's going to be in there for 3 days, rotting. No question. So what I'm telling you is, my friends, you are a vegetarian machine. You can still eat meat. You'll still be my friend. Maybe not for as long, but you'll still be my friend. You are a vegetarian machine. There's no question. Everything about you says vegetarian. Every test they can give you, vegetarian animal. No question. Yes. I love teaching medical students in the universities. My favorite audience. I love teaching medical university students because when I lecture, all they do is this. Ain't no argument. They said, we may not want to do what he says, but his A&P is correct. A&P is anatomy and physiology. Well, you know what that is, anatomy and physiology. I explain it to them, and they go, yeah, he's right. He's right. No arguments. All right. So, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, the nutritional biochemist at Cornell University, he headed up the China study. This is the largest medical study done in the history of medicine. Dr. T. Colin Campbell and Oxford, Cornell University and Oxford, teamed together to do this study in China because they wanted to find out why the Asians don't get the Western diseases. What's causing it? Is it the water, the soil, the air? What is it? So they went over there, spent millions of dollars when all they had to do was read Genesis chapter 1. But they spent millions of dollars putting all this data together, put the China study together, and when it was published, the Meat and Dairy Council were very unhappy. But they couldn't sue them, they couldn't block it, because this was established medical fact. They could not dispute it. And what they found out was the primary reason why the Asians do not have the Western diseases is their diet is primarily plant-based. Plant-based. And they studied several different sections of China. So they couldn't say, oh, the water was bad in that area or the air was polluted or so on. No, they studied the whole country in several locations with big teams and lots of equipment. And they said, it's the diet. That's what it is. So Dr. Campbell was asked to speak to a room full of cardiologists, heart specialists. They said, Dr. Campbell, you are the nutritional biochemist at Cornell University. Tell us what we can do for our heart patients. And he got up, and in just a few short sentences, he told them exactly what to do. And here's what he said, and I'm quoting. Why must we be reticent or reluctant about recommending a diet which we know is safe and healthy? We as scientists can no longer take the attitude that the public cannot benefit from information they're not ready for. You know, I think my speaker is off. I know, that's because my voice carries. Now the speaker is on. All right. We as scientists can no longer take the attitude that the public cannot benefit from information they're not ready for. Do you get this? The scientists know you can't handle the truth because you've been brainwashed and bleached in irons for so many decades. You wouldn't know the truth if it hit you in the face because all you believe is propaganda. You got to remember, advertising is not fact. It is propaganda. They're trying to get you to consume, use, or wear their product. That's their goal. Not your future, not your life. It's to sell, sell, sell. So he goes on. We as scientists must have the integrity to tell them the truth and let them decide what to do with it. We cannot force them to follow the guidelines, but we can at least give the public these guidelines and let them decide. Thank you. Tell me the truth so I can make an educated decision. We as scientists must tell the public that a diet of roots, stems, seeds, flowers, fruits, and leaves is the healthiest diet and the only diet we can promote, endorse, and recommend. That's the nutritional biochemist at Cornell University. He is Professor Emeritus, held in highest esteem. I had an opportunity of being with this guy. I went to a convention. Thousands of people were there in California. One of the reasons I went is because I wanted to hear him in person and see what he had to say. When he finished his talk, I watched him go down the side and he went to the back of the room. So I watched for the next speaker to come up, but I turned back around and I saw he was still standing there. And I thought, well, man, I'm not going to waste any time. If he's got nothing to do, I got something for him to do. So I hoofed it back there and I said, are you busy right now? He said, no, I'm actually waiting for my driver to come and pick me up. And I said, would you mind if I ask you some questions until your driver gets here? He says, no, fire away. Well, boy, I shot questions at him like a machine gun. And being a university professor, he fired right back at me. And we had almost an hour together. Do you know how much that would cost me in real money to talk for an hour to the nutritional biochemist at Cornell University? Yeah. So he saw his driver coming. He said, I got to go now. There's my driver. But he said, you and I are on the same page. Unfortunately, we're going up against a multi-billion-dollar industry and dirty politicians who will sign legislation to subsidize their food so that you can get a lot more Big Mac than you can get a bowl of fruit for cheaper. It's subsidized by dirty politicians who gave them the easement if they donated to their re-election campaign. Yes, this is how it works. That's why they put in legislation. We'll give you $1 million to get reelected if you will sign this bill. Well, I don't agree with it, but I need that $1 million to get reelected. Yes, I've had politicians tell me the number one job when they get into office is to get reelected, not to serve you, not to help the country, it's to get reelected. And George Stephanopoulos said exactly that in his autobiography when he became the chief of staff of Bill Clinton. He wanted to clean things up. You see, his grandfather was an Orthodox priest. His father was an Orthodox priest. And George Stephanopoulos was going to become an Orthodox priest. But when he got to university, he found some things that were a little more interesting to him, especially politics and government. And he had such a brilliant mind, he excelled. And graduating with honors, Bill Clinton said, I want you to be my chief of staff. And he said, good, we're going to get things cleaned up. But after a couple of months in Congress, the old boys sat him down and said, well, Georgie boy, this is how it works. And he got an eyeful. I read it in the first chapter of his book. He said, we don't do what's right. We do what works. And primarily, what works for them, not the country. That's a shame. But it's right there in black and white, and someone who was in the White House, and he wrote it down. They don't do what's right. They do what works. Sad. Anyway, little sidetrack, but that's why we've got all this junk food and stuff that we have. And that's why it's so cheap, is because they got federal government subsidies to help pay for this junk food. No, they don't give subsidies to watermelon patches and grapes and bananas and oranges and apples. No. But that's the world we live in. Oh, I'm already at 8:30. I don't want to keep you much more than an hour because I know it's 8 o'clock and it's getting close to our bedtimes, right? Our bedtimes. All right. So, you heard Bill Clinton talk about, I eat a little fish once in a while. He hasn't heard my lecture yet. I'm going to tell you a little bit about fish. If you think it's safe, you're in a fantasy world. I have taught the Eskimos above the Arctic Circle in Kotzebue, Alaska. Their fish have mercury poison. And I said, get out of here. You're above the Arctic Circle. Where did you get the mercury? And they said the acid rain from Russia came across the Bering Straits and contaminated our rivers, our lakes, and our streams. I was teaching in Guam. I was teaching in Fiji. And a government man stood up and he said, you better listen to this guy because he's done his homework. our fish that we get here in Fiji have both mercury and lead poisoning in it. And the people were horrified. They said, we have no neighbors. Have you ever taken a look at a globe where Fiji is? There's no neighbors. They're out in the Pacific Ocean with no company. How did they get mercury and lead? And that man said, didn't you hear what Paul just said? Fish, like birds, migrate. And when they migrate, they may go through countries that have no regulations. He said, watch the traveling pattern of the birds and the fish. And if they go by a country where there is a dictator or a communist leader, they've got atomic waste, they've got pollution that's not regulated. They don't care. It goes into the air, it goes into the oceans, the animals pick it up, and they bring it to you. Exactly what happens. So he told the people, you better listen. I don't care if you like the fish or not. It's loaded. Mercury and lead here in Fiji, in the middle of the ocean, because the fish migrated. And some of that fish goes around South America where there are leaders who don't care about pollution. They don't care about making this world a better place. So that's what happens. So the US government wanted to study to find out what happened to the insecticide DDT. Oh, you know what? This is that thing on food flavoring. We'll have to watch it tomorrow. Tomorrow night? We don't have time enough to watch it tonight. Okay, so the US Fish and Wildlife wanted to find out where the DDT, you know that insecticide? Yeah. It's banned in the United States. There are still countries who are using it. Right. They are. Not everybody's banned it, but we banned it. But the government says, you know, DDT doesn't die. It doesn't go away. When we use it, it's going to be there for years and years and years. So we need to find out where it's at to protect the American citizens. So first they studied birds that ate plant food. And when they opened up their liver to see if there was any DDT in there, because if you want to find a toxin in an animal, you look in the liver, because it's a detoxifying organ. And when they opened up the liver of birds that ate berries, nuts, and seeds, the DDT was 0.2, nothing. Next up, they studied birds that ate worms and insects. We're moving up the food chain now, aren't we? You understand what the food chain is? Starts with plants, insects, smaller mammals, larger mammals, and then carnivore is the top of the food chain. As we work up the food chain, we have a new word that didn't exist when I was in school called bioaccumulation, which means if there's contamination at the bottom, it's going to accumulate and get stronger as it goes up the food chain. So we're discovering the birds that ate worms and insects, the DDT had tripled in strength from 0.2 to 0.65. And they said, we're getting warm. So then they studied birds going up the food chain. They studied birds that ate rodents and snakes and small mammals. Wow, now up to 50. And then they went on the Atlantic coast and the Pacific coast to study birds that ate seafood. And when they opened up the liver of those birds, it was 900. We found it. It washed off the plants into the rivers and the lakes and the stream and the ocean. That's where it's at. It's not going away. That stuff is loaded. Now I don't eat sea lettuce. I don't eat kelp. I don't eat anything out of the ocean because I know it's contaminated. So I stay away from it. But you have to make your own decision. But be sure you're making an educated decision. The National Academy of Sciences and the World Health Organization at the United Nations teamed together to do a study on how to improve world health. This isn't for a particular country or a region, it's the entire planet. And they put their research together, all their investigation, and the conclusion that the National Academy of Sciences and the World Health Organization said, what we need to do to improve world health is to lower our salt intake, avoid alcohol, reduce fat and cholesterol. We must exercise, have a moderate amount of protein. Most Americans eat 200% more protein than their body can handle. You are not a protein machine. You are a carbohydrate machine. You need to have at least 8 servings a day of fruits and vegetables, especially the green leafy vegetables, the citrus fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. Nowhere in this recommendation was meat or dairy products. None. Why? Because they want to improve world health. That means no meat, no dairy, vegan. This is from the National Academy of Sciences and the World Health Organization. This isn't some hippie group in the middle of Montana. These are government and world organizations, and they knew what we had to do. And we're not doing it, are we? No. But people are becoming educated. There are burger places now that serve veggie burgers because they realize supply and demand. People quit going to their places because they said, I don't want to eat any meat. We'll make a veggie burger. All right, I'll try it, you know? And they're getting very clever with some of this stuff. Beyond Beef and Impossible Burger and stuff like that. It even bleeds like hamburger because it's got beet juice in it. Yeah. But remember, it's beet juice. It's not real blood. So what does the Bible have to say about this? The original diet given to Adam and Eve is found in the first book of the Bible, the very first chapter. God wasted no time telling them what to eat. Genesis chapter 1, verse 29 was the original diet given to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And what was that? The original diet given to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden was a fruitarian diet because nothing died in the Garden of Eden. They only ate the fruit of the plants. Now, when sin and sickness came into the world, God added another measure to their diet. And that's in Genesis 3:18, because he knew we were going to need the healing medicinal qualities of the herbs and the vegetables. Fruit is not as healing as vegetables. So in Genesis 3:18 came all the vegetation, the fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. Never again in the Bible do you hear God say, this is what I want you to eat. Now I know what you're thinking. The flood. I'm with you. When the vegetation was wiped out, there was a temporary emergency, and God said, listen carefully, I'm going to allow you now to eat meat. That's right. Is this what he wanted? No. He said, I have to allow you now to eat meat. However, with the meat eating comes restrictions. Eat all of them like the fruits and the vegetables. That's right. There's going to be restrictions here. And here they are. First restriction is, God said, I put animals on this planet to clean up after you. That's right. They're living garbage cans. That's right. They're in the air, they're on the ground, and they're in the ocean. That's right. Everywhere. Cleaning up after us. Stay out of the garbage cans. That's right. The second restriction that God gave was of the clean meat, to make it safer, to lower the cholesterol, I want you to remove 2 things before you're allowed to eat it. What 2 things must be removed from meat before you can claim to be a Christian and following the Bible? The blood and the fat. And you heard what I just said. Before you can claim to be a Christian and follow the Bible, you can't go to McDonald's. You can't go to Chicken Licken or Colonel Cholesterol, because all of their meat has fat and blood. I taught at a Methodist seminary. in South America. No, it wasn't, because I didn't have a translator. Must have been somewhere in America. I do speak Canadian, eh? Some of you who know Canadian, eh, know what I'm talking about, eh? Anyway, I didn't have a translator. These were all, as a room full of Methodist ministers. Methodists, ministers. And they're coming here to the seminary. And when I went to go speak there, I asked the president of the seminary, can I say whatever I want, or are there some things you're not comfortable about? And he said, Paul, if it's in the Bible, you can tell us. And I said, I got you now, boys. So I stood in front of these Methodist ministers and I said to them, what two things have to be removed from clean meat before God says from the Bible you're allowed to eat it? And those Methodist ministers, like the Vienna Boys Choir, all sang the same song, Fat and Blood. And I said, oh, you know this? And they go, well, yeah. And I said, I was raised a Methodist. I was never told, no fat, no blood. You never say it. I've never heard you say it. How many of you have told your congregation, no fat, no blood? Well, we have other serious things to talk about. And I said, you know, when it comes to diet, God often uses the word abomination. That's right. That's serious. That's salvation. And he calls some of this food abomination. Right. You have to remove the fat and the blood. Leviticus chapter 17, Deuteronomy chapter 12, Genesis chapter 9, 3 of the 5 books that Moses wrote, he said, no fat, no blood. Right. And it's repeated in the New Testament. No fat, no blood. So I'm going to ask you again, and you're going to have to say this out loud. If I claim to follow the Bible and obey God, can I eat meat with fat and blood in it? No. One more time. No. But everyone I know, from conference leaders to members that eat meat, all of them, 100% eat fat and blood. You cannot claim to follow the Bible and eat fat and blood. It's clear. It's not just a one-time statement. It's several times it's said, no fat. God says the blood is mine. Why? Because the diseases are carried in the bloodstream. That's where it's at. Leukemia cells, cancer cells, it's in the blood. So God said, get it out. No fat, no blood. Now, can you buy that meat today? Haven't tried, have you? It's called kosher meat. Now, I was lecturing in Connecticut and New York, and I ran into some Hasidic Jews. You can spot them. They have the curly hair on the side and the yarmulke on top. And when I saw that, I said, my man. I went over and I said, you've eaten kosher meat, haven't you? He said, well, of course. And I said, what's it like? He said, you don't want seconds. I said, why not? He said, because the salty urine is gone. The juicy fat is gone. The rich blood is gone. It's like eating a gray rubber band. There is no flavor at all. And that's exactly what God intended when he allowed them to eat meat for the emergency crisis after the flood. Noah couldn't plant those seeds fast enough. He wanted something tasty, not grayish, white, kosher meat. No taste in it at all. It's a tough, chewy rubber band. But one day somebody said, I will have mine medium rare. And we've been in trouble ever since, haven't we? Yep, we eat the fat and the blood. And I don't understand how our conference leaders, and I know they eat meat. They eat meat, and it's not kosher. And I want to ask them, how can you claim to be a servant of God and disobey him when he told you no? No fat, no blood. That's mine. It's not yours. You can't handle it. It's full of disease. It's full of sickness. You see, in the animal kingdom, there are over 200 communicable diseases. Of those 200 communicable diseases, half, about 100, will cross the species barrier into humans, which means I can get 100 diseases from the animal kingdom. I have enough disease in my kingdom. I don't need another 100 from the animal kingdom coming inside my system. I have to deal with mine. What's going to happen when I've got 100 more coming in? I'm going to get sick. I may die because I've overloaded my system. It wasn't designed to handle those extra 100 diseases. It's busy enough keeping up with what you've got, not the other 100 from the animal kingdom. This is so logical and so clear, and I find no excuse for it. There is none. You can't hide behind one Bible verse. You can't hide behind one scientific study. The big boys, you know, they're all on the same page now. Johns Hopkins, Virginia Mason, the Mayo Clinic, they're all on the same page now. When I started teaching 30 years ago, they did not agree with probably 30% of what I said. They didn't agree with me. In fact, some medical centers in California said I was going to be responsible for people dying if I told them to go vegan. They said, you're going to be responsible for their death. I said, I'm not following you. I'm following Bible and Spirit of Prophecy. And Ellen White said she removed the dairy products from her table and never served it again. You see, you've got to read her statements on health toward the end of her life. Because at the beginning, God didn't give her as much light because it was too much to handle. They asked Ellen White about pork, and she said, I have no light on this. Go ahead and eat it. Did you know she said that? You can eat pork. She said that. And then she found out later, God didn't want me to bring up the pork issue because we were dealing with the Sabbath issue, and we didn't want to throw anything more into the mix to have people question us and to doubt us. So God said, leave that one alone. We're not dealing with that right now. We're trying to establish the Sabbath. No pork information. She said, I have no light on it. It's okay to eat it. But as she progressed, she got to the point, you have to read most of the stuff after the 1900s, because that's when God was giving her the final presentation. She died in 1917, isn't that right? 1915. July what? 14? I used to know this in college. July 17, 1914. Maybe perhaps I got the 17. Anyway, when you start reading after the 1900, things get really serious now. So she told her cook at one point, do not serve me any dairy products. None. I will leave it here for my guests if they want it, but none for me. So the cook had to be careful when she prepared Ellen White's meals that there were no meat or dairy products in the meal. And then she finally said, out of the house, no dairy products in the house. Nobody will receive dairy products from my table because it is unfit to eat. That's what she said. But most people read what she said at the beginning instead of the greater light toward the end. She was given more light and she told us more at the end. It wasn't at the beginning. This is what I learned in college. They said her health understanding was progressive. She didn't get it all at first, but it was progressive, as much as we could handle. But when she was getting ready to leave this earth and take her rest, she had to give the whole enchilada. She had to tell us everything. And she did. And I find very few people who will read that. Very few people who will teach it. And even fewer who will practice it. Amen. We've got to make some changes. Because we're told that if we don't, God's going to put us to sleep. Listen to what I said, because you're going to go out here saying people are going to go to hell if they eat meat. The rumors have spread about me. And I said, you're going to have to show me where I said that. I have never said you're going to go to hell if you eat meat. Yes. I never said you're going to go to hell if you eat cheese. I never say that. But what you are doing is you're telling God, I'm not giving 100%. And God say, you know, this is as close as you're going to get to me. I'm going to put you to sleep right now. You're not going to have the stamina or the health to go through the time of trouble.
That's right.
Only my vegans are going to be able to do that. The rest of you guys are going to get the diseases from the animal kingdom that's in the milk, that's in the cheese. I had somebody once tell me, Paul, I don't drink any milk. I said, well, good for you, but I do eat some cheese. Do you know it takes 5 cups of milk to make 1 cup of cheese? So that's even worse. That's why she said it is unfit for the human stomach, because you're getting 5 times as much milk when you eat cheese. But you know, they're coming out with almond cheese, soy cheese, cashew cheese. It's wonderful. When I first started this back in the mid-70s, there was not a lot to choose from. And some of you who were eating that way know half of that monkey meat tasted like cardboard. It was not tasty. You didn't want seconds, and you went through a lot of ketchup and pickles to try to make it palatable. But they've come a long ways now. This stuff is really tasty. It's really good. But you've got to be careful, because you don't know what they're doing in that laboratory. They could be doing some hokey pokey back there. And so we're just getting started on this. We're going to have to continue tomorrow night. But we're going to show you some video footage that's going to shock you about what God has said. I can remember that I was saying it was a moral issue, and I was attacked by conference leaders saying, you're creating heresy because it is not a moral issue. And then one day I was watching Andrews University, Dwight Nelson say right in front of the people several times, diet is a mortal issue and a moral issue. And I got that tape, so that any one of those guys want to come after me, you talk to Andrews University about this, because they made it clear it is a moral issue, not just a mortal issue. It's not a question of just life and death. It's a question of eternity. It's a moral issue. But these people hide behind stuff, and they attack when they should be supporting. But that's where we are. But we're moving ahead. And you know what's happening is we were told the world is going to pass us up. They're going to move faster than we are. And they are. When I used to say at a restaurant, I'm a vegetarian back in the 70s, they go, whoa, what do you eat? I could never be a vegetarian. Really? That's all you eat is vegetables? Do you know there's a lot more choices in fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables than there is in carcasses? In carcasses, what do you got? Fish, chicken, beef, some dog, depending on where you go. You don't have near the selection that I do. And all the hundreds, there's over 200 kinds of apples alone. Not counting all the berries and all the tropical fruits. I have a much bigger selection than you do. My world isn't very small. And now, when I go to a restaurant and I tell them, I'm a vegan, what do you have I can order? And they said, oh, you know what? I almost never eat meat. They're not looking at me as strange. They're in on it. It's amazing how they are not making that askance look at me saying, so what do you eat? Because you see, for them, the meat is the food. The vegetables is the decoration. It's not the meal. It's the decoration. So you've got to get it straight. This is the main meal, you know, the fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. Anyway, we're going to go a little deeper into this. Remember, I'm not picking on anybody because I don't know what you eat, but you do, and you know what you need to do. And that's between you and God. So in closing, I will tell you that we just finished this last week getting these ready. All of the presentations that I made at Gary Venden's church, what do you call that? Glendale. I knew it's 2 men's name, but I can never remember which 2 men. Glendale. Glenn and Dale. Anyway, this is called a thumb drive that you plug into your computer if you want to watch the presentation. And these are DVDs that you can watch the presentation. It's 12 hours of information. that we did at the Glendale Church, because we did it all week long, every night for a whole week. So this is 12 hours of information. And if you want this one or you want this one, we have them available tonight. I'll have some more tomorrow night if we need it. The suggested donation that I'm asking for is $75. When you realize you're buying 12 hours of lectures for $75, that's about $5 an hour. Babysitters get twice that. So it may think, whoa, $75 is too much. Well, as I said, it is the suggested donation. If you don't have it, I still want you to have this because it's too important. So whatever you have, you can go ahead and have it, but you can't give me $1 and want 10 copies because I can't afford to make that many copies, all right? But I will give you 1 copy for whatever you've got. But if you want more than that, I've got to feed myself and pay my bills and feed my car. So I have to have money coming in. So this is like the Apostle Paul. These are his tents. I don't make tents, but I do make these. And with 12 hours of information, you will need almost everything you need to know is right here in these 12 hours. It's just wonderful. And they filmed it really well. They edited it. It's very well done. And I think it'll be a blessing. I also have recipes right up here in that first chair, 6 pages of recipes, all vegan, that you can try. And if you try them and make them, you can invite me over to your house anytime if it comes from those 6 pages. Because I know it's unleaded. It's something I can eat and not get sick. What people don't realize is I'm not trying to be picky. I will get sick if I eat some of the regular food because my body is clean and it will react to things that are coming in that it doesn't get normally. So irritating spices, chocolate, cheese, and grease, my body rebels against. It will make me sick. And why do I have to be polite for 10 minutes with you and be sick for the next 3 days? That's not right. That's not right. So I try to explain to them, I'll get sick. Oh, that's not going to make you sick. Well, that's because you're already sick. So you wouldn't know what well is. I do. And so if I consume these products, my system is going to tell me that. All right? We are at 8:30. It's time to wrap it up. So I'll see you after. Pick up your recipes right there in that front chair. We try to make it 1 per family. And then if you're interested in either one of these, see me and we'll take care of that. Do you have anything you want to close with?
Yes.